What's up, folks? We're back. We trying. Nerdy by Nature Productions. That's Leroy and Michael. We got some videos we're trying to get through. We got some reactions. We got some analysis. We got some in-depth discussions that we're doing. And this is a big one. Leroy, what are we talking about?
We're going to review Acolyte, the latest Star Wars series from Disney Plus. Um, it has caused a disturbance in the force. There are
That's a
factions.
yeah,
There are factions. There are groups of people who have opinions and might as well join in on it. So, uh,
sure.
first of all, were you excited about this series when it was announced, and then when it premiered?
So I like the actress. I like the actor, actor, Amanda Stenberg.
Hmm.
I like them. I've seen some movies that they've been in, and they've been good. So that was interesting to me. I didn't really follow it that much because, and this is something we'll get into, I think, in this discussion, but there's been a lot of Star Wars recently since four, five, and six came out, and then the prequels came out, then seven, eight, nine. There's been a lot of Star Wars. Is there too much Star Wars? Maybe we'll talk about that with this, but I kind of didn't really get into every nook and cranny and the details of it. I just wanted to see what it was. So I was looking forward to it, but I wasn't binging everything that came out about it.
Okay. Um, so you did finish it.
I did.
Uh, I think I had to convince you to finish it
You
because I don't
did?
think you didn't. I don't even think you started it when I talked about it. Um,
No, I
when I
think I watched the
asked you
first
about it.
episode when it came out,
Um,
but I didn't. I wasn't. It wasn't like Andor or Mando to me.
okay. I mean, I can see that for some people. I I watched it pretty much every night that it dropped.
Okay.
That Tuesday night, I usually I think I they had the 2 episode premiere. I watched that pretty much within a day or two, maybe the first night or maybe the next. I can't remember exactly how, but I usually watch it within 24 hours of when it released. And uh, I there has been a lot of Star Wars released. I've pretty much watched all of it with the exception of the Young Jedi series that's really aimed at children. That
Mm-hmm.
has Yoda in it and has like all the little. It's like it's like that new animation they do for like kids.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't watched that one, but I've pretty much watched all of them. And I watched this when the finale dropped. So I watched it week to week. I didn't binge it when it was all done and then watched it over a weekend like that. Um, is that how you watched it?
So I watched we I watched the first three or four episodes when they came out, or at least not the day of, but I watched it the weekend of. So they came
Hmm.
out what, a Tuesday or Wednesday or something, and I would watch it
Yeah.
Saturday.
Okay.
The first three or four episodes I did, and then I kind of just like, this isn't really. I think I know where they're going, and if they are going that way, it's like, huh. I mean, I guess that's cool. Um, and we'll talk about it when we get to spoilers. But there was a really funny, snarky headline that was on Polygon. I can't remember who wrote it, but I was like, oh, that kind of is where we got. Um, but we'll talk about it when we get into spoilers.
Okay.
Um, so I stopped watching for a little bit, then I caught back up, and then when the finale came out, I think I watched the penultimate episode and then last episode to for the finale.
Hmm.
But I watched that pretty close to when it came out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's your thinking behind it before we get into spoilers, and let's do a like quick review of the show.
I think it's fine. I realize there is a lot of TV out there that is fine, and that's
Hmm.
okay. And I think we live in a society. No, we live in a world where something either has to be terrible or has to be the best thing ever. I think this is fine, and I'm okay with it. I would have liked more, I think, but I'm okay that it was fine and didn't blow my socks off. I don't hold it into like the highest regard, like Andor. Andor is really good. Everything about Andor was awesome. Um, in terms of like the new Star Wars stuff that has come out, uh, I think this is C plus, B minus type, and that's fine. But again, it didn't blow my socks off.
Okay. Um, what would it, as someone who's admittedly not a huge Star Wars fan, is it because they did? Is it that it didn't catch you because they tried something different, or was it just like your Star Wars out of the actual Jedi Sith battles, and you're looking for something different?
We've talked about this. This galaxy, they always say this galaxy is so big and so vast, but there is so much content focused around the Skywalker family. That's fine. This doesn't focus on the Skywalker family. That's cool. It does focus on Jedi, and I get it. Knights with swords are awesome, but I kind of wanted to go somewhere else. Um, Having said that, it's not the fault. I don't know that it's the fault of the show because we knew what we were getting when they said Acolyte. We knew what it was going to entail. The High Republic. That's fine. I just for Star Wars to be so big, it always seems like it always focuses on a Jedi or somebody with a lightsaber. To me, I know books and comics go other places, but I feel like live action TV shows, it's always focusing on a Jedi or a lightsaber. I mean, Mando has a dark. Does he have the dark saber, or did Katie Sackhoff get it?
He has the dark. He had the
He has.
dark saber.
He had the dark saber. I mean, everybody's got a lightsaber. It is a cool weapon, but there's other weapons out there. There's other stories to tell. I just want them to expand more. Um, I think Star Wars. I don't. I'm not going to say it's stuck in a rut, but I think when they try to explain stuff and go behind things, sometimes we don't need to know the history of stuff. There was something that happened in this show that, oh, so this is how this was the first time this was ever used, and some people might like that. Okay, to me, I kind of like having the mystery. Since we're not in the spoilers yet, I won't say what it was in the show for me, but I can give an example. Like the Han Solo movie on paper kind of sounded cool, the idea of it and the original people that were going to be with it sounded cool. But what we got was a lot of backstory for stuff I really didn't need explained. Like, I don't need to know how he got his last name. And the reason you gave wasn't that great. I really don't care about the dice. There was just so many things that they tried to fill in backstory wise that really wasn't necessary. Sometimes it's cool to kind of have a mystery, I think.
Hmm. Um, hmm, I can see that. I personally, I thought Solo was just okay. I thought the standout was Donald Glover
Mm-hmm.
and um, the lady with the three names.
Phoebe Waller?
Uh,
Yeah, she's awesome.
yeah, I thought that idea and the idea of like her fusing with the Millennium Falcon was pretty cool. If you hadn't seen it, uh, go check it out. I th- Now here's the thing. I think when you say everything either has to be amazing or this, I to me I think that's if you live online, and I think it's
Sorry,
all.
I agree with that. Maybe I didn't elaborate, but go ahead.
I think it also. I think this show, in the lens of people who watch these shows, because there is an economy and a culture that is associated with fandom, Star Wars, and online culture that I'm going to use this term converges. And so it depends on what pocket of that fandom that you are in determines how you view this show. And I think that's something we can expound on later when we get into the whole how do you view Star Wars or what is the state of Star Wars, because D23 um, has gone on, and that's for a later conversation. There are some things that were announced, and going forward, where does Star Wars go after this? Um, I watched Acolyte when it first came out. I was excited for it, but I also realized that the way the trailers were cut and the show that we were given, almost looking back at it, seems like two different shows. So I feel like the way the trailer was cut and the trailer that the way it was presented to us, the story didn't follow along the tone that that trailer set for it. And I feel like that was kind of,
Misleading,
yes, very. I feel like that was misleading, and
intentionally misleading, or like just coincidentally
I'm
misleading.
not. See, that's the thing. I'm not sure. I'm not
Okay,
sure if it was intentionally misleading, intentionally not giving us more information to give you this mystery. Like what happened, what's going on. But I'm not sure, and I haven't figured that out yet. I'm still working through that. I like the show. I think the show swung big. Um, I really think they swung big. They swung for the fences on this one. Now, did they connect? Some parts, yes. I think there were some parts that I think lightsaber wise, I think the the
choreography was really good.
the fifth episode I think was outside. And again, I'm going to be that guy. Outside of the Last Jedi, had some of the best lightsaber battle we've seen on film.
I
Um,
think Obi Wan had some pretty good stuff.
Obi Wan did too. You're right.
Surprisingly,
The,
yeah.
the last the last the the last episode when Obi Wan faces Anakin again, that episode was very good. You're right. But I liked it. I did. I think I have a lot of problems with the show, and we'll get into that too. I thought the motivations for some of the characters was a little off. I thought the the characterization wasn't fleshed out to a certain extent. There was some unexplained, and I'm not sure if that's a writing part problem or if that was a problem. Like, oh, we're gonna show you this in season two. Like, how did this happen? That kind of thing. But I do believe they did a very good job of painting the Jedi Order in a particular light that made it more believable how the Order fell going forward. And it seems to me in a lot of the Star Wars that we're getting, you're getting. I think your problem with Star Wars is the problem that they have created for themselves in continuing a narrative and only focus on this 100 years of the Skywalker family. How do you show the Jedi Order was a huge institution, revered, to the end of the Jedi Order, the rise of the Empire? How do you make that? How does all of that make sense? And then you have the end of the Return of the Jedi, and then you have the Mandalorian, and how does the Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and all of that from the end of the Empire, the beginning of the New Republic, lead into the First Order? And I think that's what everyone is trying to do at Lucas, is to make it all make sense, to tie the movies and the television together so that it all makes sense in one cohesive storyline.
It's
And that
almost
is,
like maybe stuff wasn't designed that way. But
so I think part of the problem is when you do that, everybody has to be on board with what the vision is. And I think part of that problem is when you bring in certain people to helm certain projects that's supposed to tie into it, then you get this.
mhm.
Instead of saying, if you're going to do this 1,000 years before. And so that's what I think the biggest problem with this is that there is a bunch of nerds out there, myself included, in the nerddom who know a lot about Star Wars. Where I differ from a lot of people is I feel like Star Wars universe is a big enough sandbox that anybody and everybody can play in. You have your little part, you have your part, but there is a contingent of a very loud minority of fans who seem like a majority but are not, who scream from the rooftops that this is Star Wars, it belongs to me, and this is a gatekeeper of Star Wars and what I believe Star Wars should be. And I literally and I don't know if I've told this story before. I go to Ollie's a lot. Ollie sells a lot of stuff. Ollie's motto is um, uh, we sell stuff for cheap, and Ollie's always has in stock comics, graphic novels, collectibles that don't sell for retail price, and they always get like a deluge of this stuff. So for a while, Ollie's was getting a lot of like omnibus Marvel Comics omnibus. So they were collecting a lot of Star Wars, a lot of Marvel Comics, X Men, Avengers, all kind of stuff. And I bought um, a omnibus for one of the new characters. Oh, I'm trying to remember her name right now, and I have a picture of her. But anyway, and it was an omnibus, and I went to purchase the omnibus, and the cashier made a comment to the effect of he was like, I've never heard of this, and I don't know if it's any good. And in the same breath, made the quote or made the statement of, "I'm I'm very protective of Star Wars, of what is and isn't Star Wars." And I said, let me get this straight. You don't know what this is, but you have an opinion about it and never read it. And when he looked at me, he realized what he said, and he realized how stupid that sounded. And that's some of the loud minority. It's not all of them, but that's some of the loud minority of this gatekeeping that we do for Star Wars and in other fandoms. The MCU is now experiencing it twofold. Um, and so I want to be very clear. We can be critical of a show without denigrating or hating it or coming after the writers and the actors that are involved in it, and still enjoy something. I have very big problems with the show, but I do like the fact that they swung for the fences. I give it a I give it a 2 point. I give it a solid 3 out of 5. Witch covens.
Okay. Um, if you're going with a three, I'll go with 2.5 out of 5. 2.5 out of 5. Weird Jedi slash Sith Force helmets.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Um, so right now we're going to get into spoilers. We're going to get into the actual show.
Hmm.
So we're now at the 20-minute mark. So if you haven't, like, comment, and subscribe, we really
Yours
appreciate
says
that.
20 minutes?
Mine says 17, 28, 29, 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, because when you
Um,
said 20, I thought it was 20. Doesn't matter.
no,
Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm rounding up.
All right.
So we're going to get into spoilers. We're going to talk about more about the show. So if you're leaving us right now, we'd really appreciate what you got to say. Join us down there in the comments. When we say we, it's me. It's me. But yeah, let's get into it. Throw up that orange, buddy. So
Orange indeed.
here's my biggest problem that I think the show stumbled out the gate. Did you know there were two main characters when you started the show?
Oh, that they were
Yeah.
sisters?
Uh-huh.
No. No.
No idea. And that I think is the that's I think the biggest hurdle you gave yourself you didn't need to give yourself.
Interesting.
I
I
feel
didn't have a problem with that part.
I didn't and I did.
Okay.
I did have a problem with it because I was like, you started the show off with this huge fight, killing a Jedi, and then you jump back to a character and you're like, wait, was that a dream? Was that like what? And you're like, oh. And so that to me was the one of the big because I felt like going forward, you're going to have to prove the motivations of two characters who are exactly alike, who are identical.
Well, they're not exactly alike.
Yes, they are.
You think they're exactly alike?
I think that so that's the problem, and that's so exactly what we're talking about right now is the problem of the show.
Hmm.
Do you buy the motivations of two characters who are identical, and are they identical? And those are the two questions the show did not answer for me.
Okay.
That's why I said you gave yourself a problem in the beginning when you advertised the show as the Acolyte, when we believed it was focused on one character. And now I don't have a problem with it, but I with you having two people. What I'm saying is it's you've got to nail that. And to me they did not. and that was my biggest problem. And I didn't know if that was a spoiler if people hadn't seen it, or if people didn't know, because
I
I
think it
didn't
could
know.
be a spoil. Yeah, I don't think it's interesting when we talk about spoilers because is it misleading or are they trying to save something for the show?
Yes.
I could see 50-50 either way that it could be misleading, but also trying to say something because it kind of reminds me of another Star Wars show, Obi-Wan. When we saw
Mhm.
those trailers, we didn't know. I don't think we knew Leia was going to be in it, right?
No, no,
It was
we
that
did.
you kind of thought, oh, Obi-Wan's going to be watching a young Luke,
Yes.
or at least, or maybe you just kind of put the pieces together. But yeah, we never thought it was going to be Leia. I thought that
No,
was kind of a nice reveal in the show.
I liked it.
Yeah,
I really
I
enjoyed
thought
it.
I thought that was cool. So
And
I almost feel like a lot of the Star Wars shows are trying to do that because when I think about it, I don't think we knew about Grogu at the time, right? We
we
just knew
did
the
not.
Mando. Yeah,
And
so
that was a real big thing because they didn't merchandise it in the beginning,
hmm
and because they knew that if they merchandise and they put this out before or along when the show would, so you could get when it came out,
hmm
that would have been spoiled.
yeah, um, yeah. For me, I was okay with it being twins or whatever. Here was a really superficial thing. I didn't like the
No, I didn't.
haircut on the twins. I didn't. Something about it just didn't sit with me. It's like, is this what they have in a galaxy a long time ago, far away? I don't know. Whatever. Small thing. I
Especially
got
when you
over it.
looked at
Um,
especially when you looked at the witches and their mother, her hair was so well done. And I was like, how you gonna let them
yeah,
babies walk around the universe with that hair and your hair is on point? Like I
yeah,
had problems with
yeah.
that.
It's something about it was off. Um, I'm trying to think what really got me. The thing that I saw, and I can't remember the exact headline, but it was something to the effect of, and this was like maybe after episode 1 or 2 or something. And
Hmm.
somebody who I probably follow Star Wars like, it's just going to be an origin story for the Force choke, and they were right to an
I
extent. This was an origin story for the Force choke.
Here's the thing
I thought that was like that's interesting.
to me, and I guess this is one of those things where it's stuff like that that I'm like, is was that intentional or was that just a byproduct of the show? Because to me, I saw that headline and I was like, okay, cool. I moved on. Like to me, there were bigger things that they tackled in this show and things that they brought up that I was like, the force choke ain't even in the top 20 for me.
Hmm
Like the way the show went, the force choke, because I saw that same article. I was like, y'all are focused on the wrong things. Like and I'm not saying the show is the Titanic. That's not what I'm saying, and I don't want people to misread this. It was like watching the Titanic sink, and there's somebody trying to clean up. Like that's to me when I saw that, I was like, that's what the force choke. We're literally having a disturbance in the force, and that's how that came off to me, and I felt like a lot of it. To me, that was one of the problems with this show that I think Polygon engaged in and other people engaged in. There were bigger themes being addressed, and you missed that if you were focused on the force choke, because I thought the theme of the show was
The Jedi are assholes.
that, but also the Jedi, like any other institution, is going to do itself. It's going to do whatever it can to preserve itself and
Sure.
to keep and to hold on to power. And what happens when you no longer when you are no longer when you no longer can see yourself and be reasonable and understand that it's like that meme, are we the bad guys?
hmm
And I think that was to me kind of the theme of this show, where the Jedi no longer could see, where they were no longer peacekeepers, they're enforcers,
hmm
and they are enforcing an ideology that's going to cause people to drift away from them or not want to be involved with them because of their way they handle themselves, the way they come off the people who just want to live their lives. And you create enemies by not meeting people where they are. And in
Right.
this instance, I felt like that's what the Jedi did. And
Because these witches were just chilling. They
yes,
weren't. They weren't bothering anybody.
and not only were they not bothering anybody, you forced yourself on them, and because you didn't know how to control your feelings,
Hmm.
and you didn't embrace. And that's another thing the Jedi have a big problem with. They try to do their best to tamp down their feelings, and then what happens is those people who can't do it or who don't want to do it then become an enemy. And the question is, did you make it? Was that person an enemy, or did you make them an enemy? And I
Hmm.
think that was a theme that resonated throughout this, as we look at how George Floyd, how we look at policing after George Floyd. I think that's kind of how some of those themes we're bringing into Star Wars and saying, okay, you're supposed to be police peacekeepers, but are you really the popo? Because that's how it seems the Jedi is in the show.
Yeah, it's interesting because, and I can't speak for George Lucas, but I will anyway. When Star Wars first started, the Jedi in those three movies were seen as just as this, in my mind, as an incorruptible force of pure good, and everything the Jedi did, at least from what we got from 4, 5, and 6, is if the Jedi did it, it was the right thing to do. And I think as Star Wars has gone on, people have kind of challenged that. And I wonder if people are upset because the Jedi aren't seen as infallible, but they also can have mistakes. And maybe people don't like that idea. They
See,
want the Jedi to be everything they do is good. I don't know, just talking, spitting stuff out.
no, but see, here's the thing. I think exactly what you're saying is how people view it, but here's the thing that I will say. They were wrong from the beginning because George Lucas in the very first movie told you the Jedi weren't shit. Because what did Obi-Wan say? Your father was a great Jedi who was killed by my former pupil, Darth Vader. He lied to him.
Hmm.
And Luke called them out. Remember when Luke called them out when Vader told him, he's like, "No, Obi-Wan lied to you. I am your father." And Luke's whole world was like, and he was a SpongeBob beam. Remember, he was like,
Hmm.
"No." And then in Jedi, they were like, "Yeah," and they tried to like equivocate. Well, we couldn't really. And then remember at the end of it, and Obi-Wan was like, "That boy's only hope," and he was like, "Nah, there's another." They still were lying their ass off. So like George Lucas told you from the get-go, the Jedi ain't shit. That they will do whatever they can for, like you said, for the good of the galaxy, in their opinion. And that's the problem. That has been the Jedi's problem from the beginning. And I just think that other people are not as subtle about it. I think other people are actually having this conversation out. It's almost like, you know how your mom or your parents will say, you don't argue family business in front of,
Sure.
and that's what's going on right now. And that's, in my opinion, how I look at this show when you talk about it. We know from the beginning Obi-Wan lied to Luke. We know from the beginning Yoda lied from Luke because they could have told him from the get go, hey man, here's the real deal. Um, we messed up. We didn't see that coming. We loved your dad. However, your dad had some anger issues
He
and
did.
pretty much F the galaxy.
Hmm.
And they didn't do that. And they had their reasoning for that. I'm not saying whether they were right or wrong. They had their reasoning. But we've had this conversation throughout all of Star Wars. And I just think that these shows and these properties are now being intentional about it because let's get into it. We start with Amanda
Amandla.
Amandla
Yes. I
May
believe
and
so. I have to look it's in LA
it
because I
is,
always thought
yeah,
that was
you're right,
interesting. Yeah.
Amandla. So we start with May fucking up Trinity in the beginning. Just
Yeah.
we start with May fucking up Trinity. She gets murked. Then Osha wakes up, and I love the fact that this little girl's name is Osha. And if you know anything about work safety, and but then she's out there in space with a
Yeah.
droid,
Yeah. It's rough.
Just no work safety whatsoever. I'm like, are you part of a union? Like, is this safe? Um, so and then the Jedi show up and it's like, hey man, somebody fit your description killed this lady, and no one thought to be like, hey man, that wasn't me. I got a twin sister. I heard she's dead, but that might be her. Like it was just this whole, and I really think they did not do a good job showing the motivations between May and Osha until the end of the series. To me, the end of the series was the coup de grace. That's when
Hmm.
it finally came. It got a little better to me. The journey that we got of these two characters to where Osha got when Osha finally realized the Jedi killed her mom and they had been lying this entire time. And I feel like May was like, yeah, but it's like, bitch, you ain't no better. It's just like I really felt like May, you were part of the problem. You didn't help the situation, and to me, this show I think did the best job of any Star Wars property of showing the seduction of the dark side, of
Sure.
that sliding into the dark side, of understanding why people would want to be
I
a
didn't
Sith.
realize that was Manny Jacinto for a while. Um,
Really,
because I don't know. I guess in my mind, when I think of Manny Jacinto,
The Good Place.
I think of yes, but what's the character name from The Good Place? I can't even think of the character's name now.
Jason.
Jason. I think of Jason,
Yeah.
and we've talked about this before, but it's always fun to see actors playing such disparate roles. And it kind of
Hmm.
reminds me. Stick with me. I'm going to go on a walk, but it makes sense. It kind of reminds me of Betty White in that Betty White, goofy as hell on The Golden Girls,
Hmm.
but on something like Mary Tyler Moore, she's a cold bitch. And it's just interesting to me just to see somebody play two separate crazy wildly different roles. And so to
Hmm.
see Manny Jacinto kind of be in his own and not just be a ditz and a klutz and know what he's talking about and really have an idea what's going on, that was cool for me. But yeah, for a second I was like, oh, that is Jason from Good Place. But I liked him in this show.
Yeah, I really I liked him, and I had a feeling. So as you go along with the show, you see the four Jedi are hunted, and I think to me the biggest problem with the show is pacing, because it took too long to get to a point where you're like you actually care about why the Jedi being hunted.
Yeah,
Like you
because some of
didn't.
them are already dying. Like we don't even know who they are.
Yeah, so like you didn't get this whole, and then you had like these standalone episodes of the past to fill into how we got here. And I think that's again that's pacing to me, and that's writing and structuring of the episodes. But Manny Jacinto, his the duality of his roles in this, because I honestly don't think May knew who was underneath that helmet the entire time. I don't think she realized, in my opinion, I could be wrong, when the stranger shows up, they both acted as if, who is the stranger? Like, who's under the helmet? Who is this person? I have to please him. When it was the whole time it's Manny Jacinto. But
Hmm.
you also realize that someone trained May and someone trained the stranger. So you're like, who are, like, it's almost, I got a feeling of who is the big bad in this whole thing. And I don't know if we got a glimpse of it at that last episode. I don't know if there's a lot of questions I felt like they left unanswered,
Yeah.
hoping that they would get a season two that would answer this. And I'm like, I kind of feel like a lot of these shows need to stop doing that, because there's no guarantee, even with Disney money, you're going to get a season two.
Yeah.
So how are
And
you going to
you're
tie?
like telling a worse story for it because you're not
Yes,
answering the questions. Yeah.
and I feel like tell an incomplete story so that you can, and if we like it, we'll give it a season two. Stop writing it unless you, because I haven't seen this. I haven't seen whether or not Acolyte has already been guaranteed a green light of season two. So
I
like,
don't know because I don't know that it's doing well.
well, it has done well. See, and that's another thing. So the Acolyte, ratings wise, was one of the biggest hits for Disney Plus. Now, critically, as far as when you look at like what's on IMDb, it's been review bombed. But
Now, when you
like,
say ratings wise, you mean like throughout the entire season or like the first few episodes?
um, like
Because I feel like everybody would tune in for episodes 1 and 2, and then the question for me is, do people stay throughout the 8 episodes? Or they're like, no.
hold on, I'm looking right now because I've seen reporting. Um, I'm looking for more that has nothing to do with because I'm seeing like cosmic book news and I'm like, that's a BS website. Like
Hmm.
Forbes has something, and I'm like, I don't need to hear your critically reviewed like because you. I want to know how did the show do, and from what I saw was the show did well. Um, so and I'll try to update this as we go along, but I remember seeing reporting that it did okay.
Okay.
Oh, let's see. So, but but
So you said it.
that go ahead.
I was gonna say. So you said it swung for the fences, and I agree with that. Like, like I said, I feel like the show's okay, but I do like the idea, even though I am kind of sick of Jedi's. I do like that. I mean, if you are going to talk about Jedi's, at least you're going to give us a different take, or at least show that they're not all knowing and they can be jerks and assholes, and they can be a police state. It's something we haven't necessarily seen. We've kind of gotten glimpses and other stuff, but it was nice for them to just try something different. Um, and going on that, what the dark side is, because in this, do they say Sith in this?
No. Mm.
No, right? Okay. Um, so it's interesting to see whatever that other side of it is, um, because it does seem like the Jedi want to control everything. With these witches chilling, they're not bothering anybody. They created these kids, but they're not harmful in any way. So it's just that part I did like, just to see the Jedi in a different light, even though overall I kind of wanted something else besides the Jedi's.
I guess for me, I enjoyed it because they showed that they showed it like the idea of showing other force wielders who were light or dark who were just chilling. I thought that was interesting, and I also thought it was interesting to see the the way the Jedi responded to them, because to me that betrays how they've been responding to different cultures
Right, just shutting them down.
that they just showing up because it's like, and then two, I I think too another thing that a lot of people have a problem with this show, which I think was very telling. A lot of people didn't like that it seemed to mirror Anakin's creation because a lot of people wanted to believe that Anakin was special and he was the one, he was corrupted, but it's like no, I'm not saying he wasn't special, but this idea that because everybody wants to know how Anakin was created. And I think that's one of those mysteries in Star Wars that maybe this show is trying to tell us. But I also think that we are seeing how the Jedi move throughout the galaxy and how they're viewed by some people in awe, and some people view them as interlopers because these four people, these four Jedi, showed up on these people's doorsteps uninvited, caused a caused a problem within this family, and essentially destroyed their way of life and saw one of these children, um, from a certain point of view. And I feel that's interesting because just like Anakin, you saw Trinity tell him, or tell, I'm trying to remember what his name is, Soul, she's too old to be trained. And that's the same thing the council told Qui Gon when it came to Anakin.
Hmm.
He's too old to be trained, which means they need to get these kids at a very young age to make sure that they go through this entire process the way they want them to go through this process. And it's very interesting that the Jedi were like, yo, we have to train you a certain way to use this. Whereas Manny Jacinto, Stranger's character, is like, hey, man, the Jedi are holding you back. And so I think that I think there's a lot of heavy lifting to be done in this show that I think could have been told over a longer time if they'd have focused on one thing, if
Hmm.
that makes any sense, and then allowed those pieces to be told as the show goes on, like grow into those ideas or let those ideas naturally come as the show goes on.
So
Because
do you think you would give it a more singular focus? Does that mean it gets more episodes in one season, or
no, I would have focused on. I wonder if it was a way to focus on just the hunting of the Jedi for the entire season, like the last, and instead of throwing all of this in, because to me it seemed a rush, or maybe not rush. To me, that this series seemed like they threw a lot in there. Um, you had Martian Manhunter at the end, the last episode, basically calling out Vernestra. Hold on, I'm trying to make sure I pronounce her name correctly. Um, yeah, Vernestra. You had Daphne Keene showing up as Jackie. I
hmm.
mean, a lot going on that in any other show, people would have been given time to, like, to me, killing off those Jedi in episode 5 was rushed. Like, don't get me wrong, you like that was a great episode, but to have those deaths mean something, you should have killed them in the last episode. You end the episode with that. You end the episode with this great fight. That split between May and Osha, I understand it, but that seems to be something that was a little rushed too because I just found out you weren't dead like a
Yeah,
couple of days ago. And
yeah,
not like, and not only did I find out you're not dead, we still ain't discussed this whole you set this shit on fire, girl. And so I to me a lot of that seemed to be rushed because that last episode was really good. I really enjoyed that part of it. I just felt like the payoff for it was a little rushed, as if I don't know if we're going to get a season 2, so let's throw everything in now so we can get it all out the way just in case we don't get it. Now, if we get it, we can answer some of these other questions. But
right.
I still like the show. I just had problems with a lot of the motivations. Hats off to the actor Lee Jong-ji from
Is that the
uh,
guy from Suicide or not Squid Games?
yes,
Yeah. Okay.
uh, he learned English for this show.
Okay.
I thought he did a really good job. I thought Jodie Turner Smith did okay. I would have liked to have seen more of her. I think she did okay. Uh, I want to say hats off to. I thought Charlie Barnett, who played George Fandor, I liked him. I would have liked to have seen him and Daphne Keene's Jackie a little bit more. Um,
Yeah, I was not expecting Jackie to die. I was like, oh, hmm, he put three holes in her. That's all right. It's like Sam Fisher goggles. Okay. Um, yeah, but maybe that was a
um,
testament to the fact that I like that character. So I kind of bonded with her a little bit, and it kind of goes back to your point earlier when you're saying killing all these people near the beginning doesn't hold as much weight because they don't mean anything to you yet.
Hmm. You and like you it to me, like I knew, like here's the thing, I knew it was coming because I was like, it's episode 5. You taking about a whole bunch of Jedi into the Forest. You've set this up to be like a
This is the
couple of them are not
slaughter.
gonna make it. Yeah,
Yeah.
like like there was a couple of people I was like, I didn't even know you were on this ship. I was like, oh, you a red shirt. Okay, cool. We go, double tap you. Let's keep it moving. And I thought it was one of those things where I like the idea of what they tried to do with this show. They tried to do a murder mystery with the show. I
Hmm.
think going forward, they needed like perfect example. You talked about the Mandalorian and the hype for the Mandalorian. To me, the Mandalorian strength was it was one character trying to figure out his place in the galaxy while also being a surrogate father. And I felt like that was one of those things where it was fairly easy to follow that plot line. That plot line of I this was part of my bounty. I feel something. I need to do I need to be better. Let, I'm going to change who I am. And we
Hmm.
can follow that. And I think they brought in a lot of the whole, you know, are you a Mandalorian? Are you not a Mandalorian? What is a Mandalorian? They brought those things in sporadically and then grew this franchise to encompass more and more questions. Uh, the fall of Mandalore, bringing in all these different elements, but the core thing of the show that first season was the adventures of Mandalorian and Baby Yoda. And so I think that made it easier to stomach. Now, don't get me wrong, there were people who had problems with that show too, because a lot of people wanted the Mandalorian to be the Boba Fett show. And then when Boba Fett actually came out, they were like, why did we get this when this is what we wanted?
Right.
And so I want to be clear that my criticism of the show is not one of those channels that, and that's another thing too, we have to be careful of. There are channels whose only job is to hate watch stuff and to get clicks on the internet, to get you to buy
I think people
into.
realize our channel's not that though.
No, but what I'm saying is when you listen to people and you say you're critical of something, and then you find this channel that is critical of something that you're critical to, like minded, understand why they're critical of it. Because, like, I loved Clone Wars, The Bad Batch. I loved The Mandalorian and cannot stand Boba Fett.
Hmm.
And I like Ahsoka. I don't love Ahsoka, the show.
Hmm.
So there's certain properties in Star Wars that I like, certain properties I'm just like, and there's certain properties I'm like, I don't like. I don't like Boba Fett. I thought the good thing about Boba Fett was that one episode, which was basically the Mandalorian. That's it. Everything else, I was like, this is because we talked about it. We were like, this isn't good. Um, and I say that to say I like this show, but there's a lot in it that leaves me wanting more, even though I would like to see more of this. I do. I would like to see more people taking a chance, taking a risk, and
You almost kind of want to make sure it gets rewarded so that at least Disney learns a lesson that hey, people like it when risks are taken.
yes,
Yeah.
and I also think you need to take risks, but I also think this is one of those shows where I was like, maybe you should have listened to the notes that you were given, because I I don't like the fact that this show is being review bombed because the lead is female. You've got
The
people
lead is
who
black.
the lead is black and female, and then you have people of different races, different different genders, and different places who are normally predominantly white male roles. Um, so you're going to have that contingent, and so I'm like, Disney does not understand and has not prepared for these things. And I also think a lot of sites like Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb have not prepared for these things where they don't understand. But then I also think there should be a realm of consensus that we can say we can be critical of something and not be called a racist. We can be
Sure.
critical of something and not say we hate diversity. But also, we can understand this may be the jumping on point for somebody who wants to get into Star Wars, who's never seen Star Wars that interests them. So this may be that property, and it should be allowed to flourish and given a leg to stand on its own. But then I also think Disney did not do a good job of tamping down and making sure that the theme of the show was easy to follow. I'm a Star Wars fan, and this was a hard show to follow.
Hmm.
The motivations behind the characters. I'm a Star Wars fan, and Ahsoka was a hard show to follow in a sense of it was all set up. And you had to have been a fan of Rebels and Clone Wars to get a lot of that show. So I think you're right. There needs to be a show that you could watch, like an Andor, without having the history of all of Star Wars on you. And I wish this was far enough away from this whole and it because we didn't even talk about Darth Plagueis, who was out there, in that little cave part, and then the fact of Vernesta at the end of it was like, "I need to talk to you," and Yoda shows up. Like we know he's still alive, but it's like this whole through line of trying to explain this one family's
Hmm.
lineage seems to be the thing that holds Star Wars back.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. I don't. There aren't any other questions I have necessarily about Acolyte. I have questions more about Star Wars, but that's something we can do in another press play or whatever video that's going to be more about Star Wars as a whole. Um, but my general sum up thoughts are it was fine. Don't hate it. Don't love it. I do like that they tried something different, even though I want to get away from Jedi. At least they tried to do something different about Jedi. And for that, I'll give it
Hmm.
props. Um, I like performances. Um, I liked Manny Jacinto. I liked Amanda Stenberg. Um, I like Daphne Keene. I want to see her in more stuff. Honestly, I mean, with her in this and her in Deadpool and Wolverine. Um,
Oh, the Dark Materials. Go watch that.
uh, maybe I need to. I tried to watch it and like I'm not feeling this, but I feel like it's a show you really got to pay attention to. I think I tried to do
Hmm.
other stuff, and that I didn't. I wasn't doing the show a service about doing that, so I need to try and watch it again. But yeah, that is something too I can check out.
Yeah, she's in that. I think she's sitting on something else. I have to go look. Um, but no, I really enjoyed it. I thought Lee Zhongji was excellent in this. I thought the performances were really good. Um, I thought again, Star Wars does not scrimp on the budget. So I thought the show itself was very good. I thought
Mm,
what
you saying that makes me think of something. Um,
what
to me, the show didn't look great.
really?
Yeah, something about it didn't look.
See, I
It definitely
disagree.
seemed like a TV show to me. It didn't feel like a movie style budget. Granted, it is a TV show, but I feel something like Andor really looked good to me. Something about it, the way it was shot. I don't know the way the production visuals of it, but something about the show seemed lower tier, just like production quality wise, and I can't put my finger on it.
See, I thought differently. I thought it did look good. I liked it. I thought the space crash where OSHA tries to save people and then she crashes. I thought that was really well done. The ice planet. I thought, what was the one planet they were on? Where the stranger was. The one where they were on the water on the beach. Like
Hmm.
I thought that was very well shot. I thought that was beautiful. And I also thought like that was I thought the locales were nice. Um, I thought the lightsaber battles were great, and the special effects were pretty good. The space battles or the space chases, I don't. They didn't really have battles in it, but like the way that they used spacecraft, I thought was really well done. Um, I didn't have a problem with it. I felt like it was on the same par as you know Ahsoka, and I guess I don't look at Andor in the same light as the rest of them, only because the story Andor is telling is totally different. So the worlds have to be more lived in and believable. Like I think Andor's story is more grounded, which leaves because to me Andor is more about the people.
Hmm.
If that makes sense. Andor is about the people who get the work done, whereas Ahsoka, Mandalorian, Acolyte is more about these grand adventures, so to speak. And I think their sets reflect that. Um, I I know a lot of people are coming after what's her name, Headland, and I like the stuff that she's done. One of my favorite movies that she's done. Well, I won't say favorite movie, but I love The Bachelorette. Um, I think The Bachelorette came out at the same time as Bridesmaids, and I think The Bachelorette is more real than Bridesmaids. Um, so if you ever get a chance, go check that out. Single Trump Female is really good that she did. I did not watch Russian Doll, so I don't know um, how good or bad that is, but I've heard a lot of people talk about it. But I hope more. The thing that I'm worried about is this show, how it's viewed, is going to cause people not to want to work in the Star Wars universe, and we've already seen it.
Hmm.
You've what is the name? Christopher McQuarrie, um, the guy who works with Tom Cruise doing Mission Impossible stuff.
Hmm.
He's flat out said, I'm not working in the Star Wars universe because the fans are terrible. Just like you've got people who are choosing not to work in the universe because if it's not well received by a loud minority of fans, it's not worth it. And that says a lot about your fandom that has that toxic, that much of a toxic environment where people don't want to be a part of your universe. And I think that's the thing that I hate being critical of this show because I think we should be allowed to have criticisms of the show, but then also I'll still allow for it to continue and go forward so that we can get more things like this. I just think they should do a better job of it. But I did
Sure.
like the show. I did like the show. I enjoyed the episodes that I watched. I thought it was a solid beat all the way through. I thought the action was an A, A plus. I mean, the part where OSHA changes the kyber crystal, force chokes out Soul, and then goes to the dark side. Like I thought that was amazing. Again, I don't know if explained enough. I think that is one of the best portrayals of sliding into the dark side and how someone can do it and the seductive nature of the dark side that we have not seen before. Like everybody's all this revisionist history about the prequels. I find very interesting because I remember when the prequels came out, and I remember people were like very upset about the prequels, and I still, if you watch those movies, you still don't see the slide, and it's still not believable. Anakin slide to the dark side. Lucas did not do a good job with that. I think you see a better slide to the dark side in the Clone Wars, but that took years of
Hmm.
showing that. I think this is one of the best portrayals of the slide to the dark side, um, and one of the most believable. Um, I, I, Ben Solo's slide to the dark side wasn't as I don't want to say believable, but it was kind of like it was a little. Like Luke just go burnt this dude in his sleep. It's like I still have problems with that. I still do. Um, but yeah, I really like this show, and I really hope it gets a season two. I hope the haters aren't proven right. I hope Disney does not cave because I do think that they tried something very new and very different,
There we go, folks. Very new and very different. Go check it out. Just like the all new Avengers. Um,
which is the actual comic book.
Indeed.
It should call
Um,
the all new All Avengers.
Folks, that'll do it for us. Any questions you want them to answer in the comments below?
No, just hit me up. Let's talk about it. I This is my opinion. I have been proven right and wrong on several occasions. So let's talk about Acolyte. Let's be respectful. That's the one thing I think what we need to get people to understand. We need to be respectful, and we need to be able to back up why we say these things and how we say them, and not just flying off the handle because different, wrong, bad. Like come on, let's put some thought into it. Um, so yeah, do you want to see a season two? Did you enjoy the show? Uh, who is your standout from the show? Um, so yeah.
There we go. Fantastic, folks. Like, comment, subscribe, and know when we put up more videos. You can click that bell somewhere, wherever it pops up on the YouTube channel. We're here on YouTube. We're on Twitter. We're on Twitch sometimes. We're on Instagram. We're
Hold on.
we're on.
We're on Threads. I'm not on Twitter. If we're on Twitter, Michael's still on Twitter. I deleted my
There we go.
account.
Yeah, we're on Twitter.
You're on
We
Twitter.
we have a Twitter account.
We do?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. There we go. Be sure to
Are
like and
you
comment,
sure?
subscribe to it. Yeah, positive.
Okay. I
I
know I
get
deleted
notifications every
mine.
once in a while.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm gonna make sure I didn't delete the retry account. I know I deleted mine. I'm like, I'm done.
yeah. Folks, till next time.